Good morning. Today is March 14th, 2022, and this is the Kubeflow community meeting on this Tuesday. This meeting is governed by the Kubeflow Code of Conduct, and it is being recorded. So we welcome everyone, and we have a packed agenda. The community has been very active, especially because we have Kubeflow 1.7 ready to be born. And with the update on the baby is Dominic. Dominic, can you take us through 1.7, please?
Sure. Thank you, Josh. So yes, the release was expected to be tomorrow. We have decided to delay it by 2 weeks. Turns out last week we encountered some issues in pipelines, and some of the community members were pushing for a newer release of pipelines, considering that Alpha 6 was 5 months ago. So the pipelines working group has actually complied with that, which I really appreciate. So we have a new release for specifically in between Beta 0 and Alpha 6, which is called Alpha 7. It includes a lot of backports of bug fixes, which weren't included in Alpha 6. So that is very good. And there was also one specific bug that we encountered during distribution testing around the way that the MySQL database of pipelines was collecting logs. It was filling up storage very quickly. So that is also fixed now. So this was one of the changes that we added to the latest RC that was released yesterday. The other one was Customize 5 support. So basically that was already in the works, but we hadn't documented it correctly. So now Manifest has a clear documentation of how to use Customize 5, which should allow people to use the latest customized version. And we also added some instructions for anyone who wants to still use Customize 3.2. They just need to comment out some section in a specific file, and they will be able to use Customize 3.2. So those two changes compromise the RC2 that we released yesterday. And given that we were going to release tomorrow, that is not enough time to actually test that RC. So we are prolonging the release for 2 more weeks. This should give everyone time to update whatever they have to update in their distributions to do some more testing. So there was 1 more week of distribution testing to update all of this and provide us feedback. And then we'll have 1 week to update all the documentation. And the new release date will be March 29th in 2 weeks. So let's hope for the next community meeting. The news is that everything is ready and we will be releasing. And besides that, I just wanted to ask any distributions that have updates if they are testing. I've heard from Canonical, I've heard from Ericto, I've heard from AWS, I've also heard from Nutanix, IBM. Is there any other distribution that wants to give some updates on how their testing is going, if they're encountering any issues? Now that we have 2 more weeks, please let us know if there's any specific issues and how we can help you. It's always appreciated. So yes, the floor is yours if you have any updates.
Well, let's be specific. Do we have anyone from Oracle available today?
Does not seem like it.
Do we have anyone from Azure?
Yeah, I'm here, but we haven't started testing yet.
Okay.
Yes, I think that the community recognizes the great work that your team has done to bring up Azure on 1.6. It is on the agenda to talk about where you guys are at, and we do appreciate all the folks from Microsoft coming in and helping. So that's good. Who else beyond those 2, Dominic, of the 11? You said we've heard from AWS, Canonical.
We heard from GCP, Canonical, Ericto, and IBM. We haven't heard from OpenShift, for example. I don't know if we have any news from that side. But I mean, in the end, please, like as always, there is the distribution tracking issue where you can always directly just ping me and let me know if there's any issues that you encounter there. That is the best place. It is mentioned in the document in the community notes just above the alignment section, distribution status. So if you're shy or you're not right now in this meeting and watching it afterwards, please feel free to mention any issues in the distribution tracking issue. But for the sake of time, let's move on. Additionally, the blog post is in its final stages. We have now a clean document with the outline of how the blog will look. Everyone, I would encourage to just take a look, provide feedback. This time we try to make a bit of we try to align some of the changes that we're doing in 1.7 with some of the recent changes in the industry in general. So I would love to hear some feedback from people, if we're getting it right, if we're getting it wrong, if we should word things differently. So everyone is welcome to comment on that. Else in the coming week, it will become a PR in markdown format, and then we will slowly get it out and get it approved by Google so that we can publish it. Additionally, I want to remind everyone that you still have 2 weeks to update the documentation. That is especially for distributions, that any kind of documentation they need to update in the kubeflow.org page, please update before the release gets out. And for any working groups, any new features, please check if the documentation is updated accordingly, so that we can actually make sure that new users will be able to get started with the latest features. And finally, we also wanted to know if there's any kind of announcements that distributions or companies are going to make around 1.7. Basically, we just want to know who's going to publicize this new release and help out, just share it all between us. And so yeah, if you're planning to do anything like that, please reach out to Josh and me so that we can be aware of it. We can also share it around. I think the more we talk about this release, the better. And yeah, so just want to encourage everyone to start talking about it, get your PR ready.
How can they reach out?
Through Slack. Through Slack is mostly the best place to reach out, or just comment now or comment in the notes and we will find it.
And to be clear, anyone who's watching and doesn't know how to join the Slack, just go to the kubeflow.org website and go to the community tab under About and click join the Slack. I had some people asking about that.
Thank you, Matthew. Yeah, I think that's something that we sometimes forget. Yeah, and that's basically it. Any questions, anything regarding the release that we want to talk about?
So the new day is what exactly?
March 29th. We were in between either delaying it for 1 week or 2 weeks. We wanted to be on the safe side because I really don't want us to delay it again. 2 weeks should be plenty of time to actually test this RC and make sure we cover any kind of issues that we encounter. So,
well, and to be clear, that's the date that the manifests get cut, right?
Yes. So, well, basically, documentation is done on March 28th. We would like to have a cut already in March 28th, but March 29th is when the official release happens and when we probably make the tag.
I still don't like how we do the versioning of the docs, because the cutting of the versioning of the docs often results in old information being captured, because we kind of snapshot the whole doc website, which sometimes includes information about previous releases. In that vein, we also do need to make a PR that adds the 1.7 release to the releases tab of the website.
Yeah.
Which again can't be done until certain. I'm happy to do that. I've done every single previous one, but if you want to just copy it, that's fine as well. But again, you'll see that some of the links can't be added until we know what they actually are in there. So
yeah, it is a bit confusing. Like, there's a lot of sections in, like, right now, every time you go to kubeflow.org, it directly points you to main, and then you go to the versions, and those are out of date sometimes. I think it's very confusing. It's something that I think in the long run we have to rework.
So
I'm not sure how
I think
much
the proposal we've made a couple of times, I don't want to derail anything. I just literally want to say the one line proposal, because it's very simple, is to get, well, maybe we need to leave the old version tabs just available for people to use, but in the future, I think we should be using the main one, which is effectively that the dropdown becomes like a legacy thing. And then we have a tag on, well, first off, we try and push all the docs to distributions anyway, so that gets fixed. And then secondarily, for the parts that we can't do that for, like for pipelines and stuff for now, which again, I do want those apps to have their own websites as well, or subdomains, either one at some point. But even if they don't initially, we can just put flags on the pages which say this part of this page refers to this version of the app. Because again, there's the secondary problem, which is that there's the app version and the Kubeflow version, which are different.
Yeah, I think we should, like, is this proposal documented anywhere? I think we should really document this
I think
clearly
it
of
has
what
been.
we
I
want
think
to
it might
achieve.
even be on the top of the page on this thing, but I'm not sure. Again, it's something that we can talk about after 1.7, but I think it's something that we definitely need to do because I've already seen problems with the pipelines docs because kind of suddenly out of nowhere, the V2 docs like
Yeah.
almost bifurcated the entire pipelines documentation section, despite the fact that there is some V2 docs in the V1 section. It's just it's a bit crazy at the moment. Like, so, and stuff like that is confusing for new users. And anyway, that's just something we should look at.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think this is something we should look at as soon as possible once the release is out.
All right, I think we do have an issue on that, and we'll get to that. We have lots of issues to do. Dominic, great work on this. I think that we've made a lot of progress on 1.7. I think we see the home stretch here. Any questions, final questions on 1.7, or are we good to move on? All right, little detour here. David, are you on to talk about tribal knowledge?
Yes, I think I was a little bit down in the agenda, but okay, I will take my spot.
All right, are you ready to talk about it? And can
Yes.
you do it in like 5 minutes?
Yes, sure.
You
So
need a screen share? I'll give you the screen share. Okay.
Sure. All right, so I don't want to take too much time of anyone. So my name is David. I'm a new contributor to Kubeflow. I've been working the last few weeks on with Josh to develop a project that's called Kubeflow Tribal Knowledge. Long story short, it's a pipeline that can read URLs from YouTube, generate embeddings using sentence embed, and using Pinecone to create a database so we can query with questions. So just probably Josh already showed you this in the last few weeks, but we have some of a Gradio app that console this database of transcribed videos. It has been proven to work with the release candidate of the 1.7 cluster. And like new feature that we have done is that we use offline transcriptions using OpenAI Whisper, but now we are using the API from OpenAI OpenAI. So what I'm looking here, or what the reason that I'm here is that I'm looking for contributors to solve 4 issues in general. The first one is that the OpenAPI can receive context to help with the transcription. So one of the few problems that we have is that there is Kubeflow catnip is not properly transcribed, but as soon as you gave context to OpenAI API, it's going to work perfectly. So things like we're going to have very good transcriptions if we are able to read the context from the YouTube videos and pass it to the OpenAI Whisper. Also, I would like someone to take a look if there is any sentence embedding that you want to try, such as different JAMA sentence embedding. There is many embeddings that if you could take a look, and how to properly deploy the notebook associated with the Gradio app or directly distributed in the Gradio app. So this is something that that we have been working for. There is a repository that is actually located in my GitHub. And if you want to take a look and put some love to that project, I would love to hear your thoughts and questions.
Right, David, thank you for that quick update. So as you guys can see, you have this UI, you can ask a question. The question will actually give you an answer from the current community meeting recordings. And because it's sentence embedding, it gives you 20-second snippet of some discussion inside of a community meeting that discusses the topic that you're interested in. Like in this case, what is the latest version of the training operator? This is, I think, go ahead.
Yeah, just to also, so the pipeline uses Kubeflow 2.0. So if you want to try how to pass context and everything, and this is part of some things that I teach, you can take a look, and we have both online and offline, and the offline from OpenAPI give you the complete text, not by sentence, but the complete text. So yeah, so take a look if something that you could help us.
Right. And so there's many parts that we continue to have. We have a weekly, every week we have 2 or 3 stand-ups, 15 minutes each. We have an agenda we walk through. There's plenty of topics to work on. David's given the 3. If folks are interested in joining, reach out to us via Slack. We'll get you into the Tribal Knowledge Slack channel. And we definitely need and would appreciate help along these lines. But this is, again, part of something that's been tested with 1.7. David, anything else that you would like to say before we close out on this one?
No, I think that's okay. We have been already tested on a cluster on 1.7, and we use new features from the Kubeflow 2.0. So if you want to see the user case for Kubeflow 2.0 beta and alpha, that'll be it. So hopefully to see a few of you on the Slack channel.
So is this a specific Slack channel, or do they need to reach out to you directly?
There is a specific channel that is called Tribal Knowledge. Josh can help you to join in and to take a look at the repo if you wish.
So you join the Slack, and the way you do it is search. You're not, just for everyone who's new to Slack or doesn't know the specific way. So when you join the Slack, you'll be in a few channels by default. It won't include this one. You'll need to do a search at the top of your Slack for, what word is it? Tribal dash knowledge or underscore knowledge?
Tribal dash knowledge.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. So
Also in that vein, I really think we should, Josh, add a section to the website, or maybe of that Slack section, which is trying to link to people that we've already got some important channels, but I think we might want to put important people as well, and just link to their Slack things, just so that I just had an idea. It's not related to this specifically, but just more generally. Like, you know, for the I think the main one would be stuff like working group leads, people who have elevated privileges in general, maybe not trying to dox them in a bad way, but like so the CNCF leads when they eventually come, and the Google leads when they're right now, and things like that, just so that people have someone they can actually reach out to.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And so we probably need a list of contacts to put on there. We can put that as a list of we'll open an item and get that going. Just to finish up on Tribal Knowledge, Charles, I see that you're here. Any comments? And David, can you give me back screen privilege on anything from you on Tribal Knowledge? Because I know you've done some work here too.
Yeah, so we're working on improving. There's a process of doing the build process and automating the compilation of the components using GitHub Actions. So I just share the channel information as well with everyone. So if you're interested in joining us, you can just jump in on that channel, post that in the group, and we'll get you on.
All right, let's keep going.
Okay.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, David. Really cool stuff, cutting edge, and continues to grow our brains. Okay, Dominic, you covered the Kubeflow blog post. I think you also may have talked about the presentation. Did you touch on the presentation?
Sorry, I didn't mention that too much. So yeah, in the next weeks, we're going to prepare a presentation. For sure, we will need some speakers from each working group. I was going to contact each working group to offer one of the people that work in this on each component so they can present about it, and we need a slide for each section. And yeah, then someone from the release team are going to talk about specifics of the release. So yeah, this presentation is work in progress still. There's an early draft where we're going to keep working on it. And yeah, that's mostly
okay. So the process here will be the working groups need to nominate someone who will be the presenter for this presentation, and a subject matter expert that will do the presentation. That person often also helps write those slides, which Dominic and I will provide kind of a template. You guys have seen the template before, but you know, top couple features, where to get more information, anything else that you'd like to put onto those slides. So, you know, it's a heads up to the working groups. We know there's a lot going on right now. This is something that we have put as secondary to getting the code done and getting the documentation done and getting the blog post done. But then the presentation does need to have some attention. So we're just giving you a heads up that this is coming, and would like to make sure that folks are aware of this, okay? All right, let's keep going. Remove distribution docs from kubeflow.org. I think we touched on this before. We've made great progress. We only have a few left open: Azure, IBM Cloud, OpenShift, Nutanix. I think Azure has a PR that's opened. Has that been merged?
No, it hasn't.
And do you know who's the approver on that, or can you see, can we?
Let's see. So the reviewers, there's already been 3 or 2 people approve it. But they
It's
were
only got
doing-
one file change. Can you open up that diff for me just for 2 seconds? It's
Which
because
one
this
do you want?
because you also, if you're going to need to, if you've added docs, I don't know how much docs are on there, but you'll need to also remove the docs that are in the sidebar and just make it a single page. But for now, what we've chosen to do, I don't think it's necessarily the best way to do it, but it's fine. Which is that we also need to update, we need to remove the many pages of docs that are on the sidebar and just replace it with a single page and add a redirect for all.
Yeah, that's the way it works. If you look at their website here, this clicks into a new site that they
Yeah,
have.
but so go to kubeflow.org just quickly, just on the public internet for 2 seconds, and I'll explain what I mean to everyone.
Yeah, well, I think we've got it resolved though, actually. If we
No.
just
So
approve this,
that PR doesn't change enough. Like, so
okay,
there's one, unless I've missed something happening, which I don't think I have. If you go to just the documentation,
okay.
top right, yep. And so there's one other page you'll need to update. So go to distributions on the left.
Oh, on the
On that
left.
too. No, that's fine. That is actually the same. You actually literally click the same thing. Don't worry. So you'll see that there's going to be one on the side there called Azure. You see now so what if you look at what Amazon did? Just look at Amazon's page quickly. We don't need to actually look at Azure's page. You just need to replace your section on the left here. Click on Amazon, for example, with something like this, a very brief text. At some point, this whole section will disappear from the website once we've migrated everyone off.
Yeah.
And so the way you do this to prevent 404s is that you can either, I forget whether we allowed it to redirect to the public internet. I don't think we did, but you can make it so that every single /Azure will redirect to the root /Azure, distribution /Azure. Because right now you've got a lot of information on there. If you open up the second link now as well, Josh, I just want to show everyone this.
What's second
The
one?
Azure. Oh, no, not that one. No, the Azure one. Sorry. Yeah. So now I see this whole section. There's like a lot of pages here. So you'll need to make a blanket redirect. I can help you do that. Or you can just go look at the change that was for AWS and see how they did it.
Okay. All right. I can take a look at that and maybe reach out to you on Slack, right?
Yeah, I can help with that. That's pretty easy. Because also make sure that your website fully covers what's on there. And also I don't recommend, I don't think we allow it either. I don't recommend redirecting from the kubeflow.org website to your website. Instead, just put a link, so if the user tries to go to one of the old Azure Docs pages, which Google will sometimes link to, you need to, what will happen is it will redirect them to the root single page one that we just showed there, like we've got for Amazon, and then they can go to the Azure website there, which I know is a little bit cumbersome. But at least that will also boost your Google search rankings because it becomes a link from a positive website with anyway, you know what I mean? Like it's that.
Yeah. Okay. Is it possible to merge the current PR and then work on moving that distribution pages to our website?
Have you not moved those to your website?
Not yet. Not yet.
There's also the other thing, there's one other thing, Josh, just one more, sorry to show. Can you go back to the installing Kubeflow page, the installing Kubeflow page overall? And this is something for every other distribution who hasn't done it yet. So getting started. Installing Kubeflow. So there's one other change is that if you roll down to the Azure one, for example, which you'll need to obviously move yourself to the not legacy, assuming you've actually released it. And
Yeah,
you'll
I've done
also, if you'll see that underneath a couple of them on the link column, there's a legacy docs section that corresponds to that thing on the sidebar. We remove that once we remove that link once you have an actual website. And once there are none on there anymore, we will remove that section from the website entirely. Well, we might leave it as those single page ones, maybe because of Google search results or something, but just so that, so that those redirects end up happening nicely. But we might need to maybe hide those pages from the left-hand sidebar so you don't end up at them naturally.
Okay.
Because that's the primary goal that we were trying to achieve here, not by you, but for everyone, which is that we didn't want to play favorites and be hosting everyone's docs, and we wanted to, things like that.
Okay. So we want to make this incremental and give a win here. Is there a way that we can approve this first PR and then?
If we can just
incremental-
update it so that it does that change, maybe, or I mean, so if you just link that PR, oh yeah, I'll look at that PR. Let me just take a look. I'll message on it. That's fine.
All right, let's do that. Okay, let's keep going. Thank you, and thanks again to all the Azure team for jumping in. IBM Cloud and OpenShift, anybody from IBM, IKS, or OpenShift available to give an update on moving the docs?
Hi Josh, Ion here. I can speak for the IBM Cloud. I'm aware about that, but I haven't started doing that yet. So yeah, I will start to do it. We already have the report side, but we don't have the page.
Could you open perhaps a tracking issue and put it here? I understand there's a lot going on right now, but at some point I'd just like to be able to track this so we're doing well for our due diligence for the CNCF transition.
Mhm. Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. And that would be that's for IKS, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so OpenShift still open, right?
Yep.
All right. And Nutanix, anybody from Nutanix here, perhaps?
Yeah, so actually it's in progress. When we are going to release it, that I'll need to discuss with team and to get back to you.
Okay.
And to be clear, what are you actually
But
proposing to change here? For Nutanix, that is.
I mean your website migration. Only the website migration, whatever the docs we have, we are going to move it to a new site.
That's cool, yeah. Because right now you don't. Right now the only real existence of your distribution is this. The link that I put on your. Actually, no, I actually took away that link. Sorry, but yeah, this is because right now you effectively. Also, I mean, I do have some questions about distributions, and it's not a bad thing for these distributions. I just want to raise it with the community right now, which is that I think some distributions are better described as guides. And it's not a bad thing to be a guide, because if your distribution is fine and it works with the upstream manifests, and it effectively just is a set of instructions for using the upstream manifests on your distribution, whatever that happens to be, EKS, Nutanix, whatever, that maybe we should not try and push things as if they are full-blown distributions when they're not. That's just my thoughts.
All right, that's a good discussion. I think that probably falls under some other topics later on. But for now, we're just trying to get the docs moved, and I get your point, but why don't we keep moving, and we'll take that one as another item about definition of distribution, okay?
Yeah, it's not so much a definition of distribution, it's more like just acknowledging the fact that if a company wants to be a separate distribution, they're allowed to be, that's fine, we're not changing that. But it's more like, in the case where someone wants to be involved in the project but does not see the need to have a fully forked version of the upstream manifest, instead we could have a section which is like not a distribution of Kubeflow, but like a reference installation of the manifests. And that's under that second type of install method, and then you can say, we can still have a link to a website that say, here's a website that's fully dedicated to installing the manifest on EKS, or not EKS in this case, Nutanix. But just, I think, I understand, I just want to really highlight that as a thing that I've been thinking about for a long time, because I think it doesn't help users if they don't, it's very, very unclear to users because they don't see the manifests directly, usually, that they don't understand that the manifests are the things that are being used sometimes, and other times people have their own forked versions, like in the case of GCP. Anyway, just moving on from that, sorry.
Okay. And then there was something about a Kubeflow operator. I don't know who owns this and what's the status of this, but
oh yeah, so that's no longer even on the distribution list because I think it was abandoned a long time ago. Right? because that's not even on the installing Kubeflow. That's just happens to be on the sidebar. I imagine that one will probably just get dropped off as the docs distribution section gets removed. But if someone is here from, I think it was IBM that was working on that, I don't believe it's been updated since Kubeflow 1.1 though.
Yeah, I think Joanna was doing that. She's been gone for a little while. So, okay, let's keep going.
So pretty much
Kubeflow-
what my proposal for that is we just drop that section once we drop that part of the website.
All right. Sounds good. KubeCon EMEA, Amsterdam, April. Stefano, Diana, Julius, any update? What are we supposed to be doing here? I know we've seen some discussions. I think there's a form that people are supposed to be filling out and picking a date. Is that correct? About when they would like to meet for a lunch?
So yeah, we were thinking about meeting all together at lunch at the venue, reserving a few tables. Whoever's coming, if you can, fill up the form, so at least we know roughly how many of us will be there, and then with CNCF, we'll just reserve the right number of tables. We're proposing for Thursday, the middle of conference, but then if you guys cannot do that day and want to propose other days, then we'll act accordingly. So if you can fill up the form and add any notes. Sorry for the notes.
Okay, and that's wonderful. Thanks for organizing that. Everybody understands what the to-do here is. Go on to this, enter your information and pick a date. Go ahead, Julius.
Yeah, actually, I just filled out the form sometime today. Yes, and so far I only know of one Kubeflow related talk at the KubeCon from me and Diana. I'm not sure whether there are any additional ones. If somebody knows, please post them here. I would like to attend them. Yeah, and we structured the agenda and so on. Yeah, and it will be, I think, on Friday, last day at KubeCon.
Yeah, so this is on April 21st. Is that right?
Yeah.
Friday. Awesome. Okay. Well, great. That'll give you a reason to tell your boss you're going to stay for Friday and stay the weekend in Amsterdam. All right. So that's KubeCon. Thanks everybody for organizing that. I'm going to keep moving on. We have a lot of items here, unless anybody has anything else about KubeCon.
Not just KubeCon, but in general, the next meeting, I think it was Amber has written an email regarding a Kubeflow meeting in Manhattan, New York, April, whatever.
Yeah, so working with Cap One on sponsoring that. We'll get information out tomorrow, all the details. We're also going to be promoting across, I think it's 12 different cities, to include non-US cities. I'm going to be asking for sponsors in those cities so we can kick off some in-person meetups, not necessarily tied to KubeCon, but just overall community stuff and machine learning, anything near and around the machine learning, Kubernetes, Kubeflow space. So there should be some emails coming out this week on all of that.
What I'm a bit worried about is the planning and I'm not sure whether it's a bit not enough time to plan for attending this meeting. I mean, it's just 3 weeks.
Right, we're only shooting for 75 people, maybe 100 in person, and then we'll also working on how we can stream that out, and there'll be more opportunities as we lock in sponsors sooner for other dates. And we're also looking at places like Athens and Toronto and a few other areas.
Athens is fine.
All right, so if we could get perhaps the sign up form link here for this, so people could know the date and the sign up for the New York City one, that would be great.
Yep.
Okay. Let's keep going. That's a wonderful effort. I think doing in person, I've been going to some here in Dallas lately, really does make a big difference. I'd like to move on to the Kubeflow 2023 user survey. Anna, Jono, do you have any update? Are they there?
Sorry. We are still working on it, right? I think we mostly narrowed down the questions. We have it in the form format. I think we're just doing a final check at the moment. Is that correct, Josh? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, Anna and Janu have done tremendous amount of work to create a list of 25, 30 questions, then scale those back, refine them, then take those and put them, this is the hard part, into a form, because sometimes you think the question is easy in a Google Doc, but it's not so easy to put into a form. They've done all that, refined it, done some testing, and I think we're well on track to start the user survey probably in April, right, Anna? I mean, that looks pretty good right now.
I think there was just like one question that we need to discuss through, but yeah, I think we should be ready by then.
So I don't know if there's any particular request from the community, if somebody wants to kind of do a dry run of the questions, because sometimes it gets a little bit like you're looking at things too often, and maybe it makes sense to us because we've looked at it so many times, but Anna, we may want a small group of people to kind of do a test run of it sometime before we release it out to the wild. But you know, that'll be in the next 2 to 3 weeks, right?
I don't think we decided on a date. At least I wasn't here last time when this was discussed, so I'm not sure if you had a date in mind.
Yeah, I'm pushing forward for an April date, but that's just Josh.
Okay, yeah. I think that's fine. I mean, if anyone wants to go through the survey, just reach out to one of us and we can help them test that out.
Private view, early view, right? Okay, yeah, all I know is that once you put the survey out, it's impossible to change, so, or it's not easy to change without screwing everything up, so it's better to take a couple quick dry runs. All right, let's go on to the CNCF transition update. This topic is way too large to cover in any amount of detail, but the topic that I would like to get to move this project forward. We all know we need to have an interface with the CNCF, and we need responses back from the TOC there. And there's some reasons why that is kind of cumbersome right now because of KubeCon coming up and because of elections and in the CNCF. But what we can do to control our own destiny, in my opinion, is to do a dry run. This would mean that we internally get together and try to get all the artifacts together and get the SMEs together to answer the questions on the checklist and do kind of a sample walkthrough. And I have opened an issue on this, and I would like to ask folks to consider when this would make sense to run this dry run. I know folks want to move very quickly on this. We're getting comments, you know, let's go or whatever in GitHub comments. I am thinking that this dry run needs to be the end of the month or the beginning of April. You know, it can be a little sloppy, it can be a little bit rough, but I think if we go through the dry run, we'll find out where our gaps are. So I've got that issue there. Does anybody have opinions on timing or the benefit of a dry run? Do people believe that a dry run will be helpful?
Victor, are you receiving this request for a dry run from the CNCF?
No, I'm doing it internally because I feel like we need to get our content together and we need to get our subject matter experts ready to be able to answer the questions. And I'd rather do that in an internal meeting before we get in front of somebody and make sure that our answers make sense to us.
I think that's a great idea, because I think in doing that and organizing it, we'll really see where the gaps are, like you said, because I think there's more than we realize.
So in that vein, do we have any updates on when we'll have a contact at the CNCF? And if not, then I've got an interesting proposal. I don't know if someone's already raised this, but it really looks like the purpose of the structure the CNCF creates for, you know, promoting apps is just yeah, what's they called? Sandbox, incubator, you know, whatever they're called. It seems really like the purpose of the sandbox stage is to do the thing that we're doing now, while within the confines of the legal structures of the CNCF. And it seems like, I know that Kubeflow is a big project that already exists and has a user base and everything. And while it might look a bit weird to be called a sandbox project, I think it does potentially make sense to reach out to the CNCF if there's a big delay in trying to jump that process and go straight to incubator, which I think might be a bit confusing. To just start by going to the sandbox and getting into the CNCF and having those structures in place, and then using those structures to do the incubator steps to get to that level. That's just a separate discussion, if that's something that might help.
Yeah, Matthew, I brought that up, I think the last transition meeting, and I think I've commented on that on a couple PRs as well, asking if we could do that just to get us into the CNCF.
But yeah, that comes down to getting a contact, Josh, or anyone else who has the contacts there.
Okay, we do have contacts at the CNCF. There is a interim steering committee meeting this week. I believe it's actually today later. This will be a topic that is brought up and discussed. I am, like all of you, anxious and anticipating that we no longer have darkness in terms of our communication with the CNCF. This has to stop. There has to be communication both ways that is open. And so this is going to be my position in our meetings going forward. But on the other side, I want to be proactive. And I think the dry run allows us to be proactive. It is like, we're just not waiting around. We have done a dry run of the checklist, and we are one step closer, a significant and material step closer to being able to go through the due diligence, right? We're smart enough to read the documents and get the artifacts together. This is my position right now as well. So one position is we have to have communication with the CNCF TOC. It's got to be open and communicated to the community. Okay, this no longer can go on. It's been 5 months. No longer can we have no communication. The second part of it is we need to do our due diligence dry run. So hopefully that makes sense. And I'm sorry if I'm sounding a little bit worn out, but I am, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think the problem has been that we're just jumping the gun a little bit. And so if we can raise that with the CNCF and with Google, because obviously Google is still the one donating, is that like, so the checklist we should be able to meet is just that sandbox one, I think. I don't think we need to try.
I'm not going to go there. I'll bring that up. There's been a discussion. We're ready to go on the sandbox. I don't know how much you've reviewed these documents. I don't know how closely you've been towards them, but I feel very confident we can make it through the incubation checklist. And I just think we need to give Google a little time to figure out, and we have, how they want to do the transition of the IP. This should all be ready to go, right? And I am pushing that if we have the dry run in the April timeframe, this will tee us up to make sure that this transition works.
So in that vein, who do you need to be, and what does it physically look like?
For the dry run, I think that what I'd like is, for those who want to take an active role, we need subject matter experts on the questions. There's the security team. There's a lot of different parts of the team that we're going to need to have folks come up and talk to. And we're going to need artifacts that prove in the various things. I think Amber has really picked up the ball and started to organize both the metrics on the community as well as some of the security things, but there's many others. I don't think she can do it all by herself. It would be good if people could kind of look at each one of those items and say, hey, I could be the subject matter expert for this and take it on. And we can walk through that in the next meeting about who the subject matter experts could be for the dry run, if that would help.
Yeah, Josh, and the next, I'm looking to see, let's see, the security team meeting is this Wednesday, and it looks like the transition meeting, the next one that we have is on the 21st. So for those who want to help, if you can join the transition meeting, that would help, because that's where we'll iron out all those details.
All right, so let's shoot for that. We'll do a pre-dry run or whatever we want to call it, subject matter expert identification and artifact identification for the checklist. And then we'll try to get an agenda together for the checklist. And that means, you know, probably first week of April. And I am trying to bulldog this through. If people really feel like this is the wrong, please comment in. I'm open to get issues, say, hey, this is wrong. You're going the wrong direction. That's fine. I'm just letting you guys know that I'm tired, right? I can't have this go on for another 12 months.
And Josh, thank you for everything that you're doing. You're kind of caught in the middle between, you know, us as the community and Google, because you're the community representative on the interim project, the steering committee there. And so you're kind of caught in the middle. And for those who, you know, maybe didn't know that, you know, that's a lot of mental energy too, because keep in mind, he has to represent, you know, all of our interests. And then, you know, he's got Google. So that's it can be a frustrating spot to sit in. So Josh, thank you for, you know, being dogged about that. So appreciate that.
I echo Amber. Thanks, Josh, for all this work. And we know that it's not that simple. It takes lots of effort. Thank you.
Well, look, this is a team effort, and sorry if I get snippy. I don't mean to be. I want us to be successful. I think the momentum in the community will grow when we do the transition. I think that we just need to show something, and I think this is the right schedule forward, but maybe there's a better idea. We got a plan. Let's work the plan or evolve the plan. I understand the sandbox question. I will bring it up, and I will try to see if there's some earlier step that makes sense. I'm a little cautious about that, but I will try and ask at least and give it a good college try there. Let's keep moving on because we have a lot of other items. People have done some really good feedback here. Kubeflow design language improvements proposal from Stefano. Stefano, what do we need? What's the outcome on this? We're talking about this post 1.7, but what do you want? Is there a date certain that you want this to be reviewed by and final comments on?
Hey, I think ideally, you know, within a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, it would be great. So we can start creating tasks, adding some more issues, and really scoping the work. We've been doing some of that at the Ricto already. You know, mostly around things that are pretty consolidated and straightforward. But on, you know, more broad changes, it would be great to have some more feedback, if anyone wants to, of course, within 2-3 weeks. So then we can make sure we can, you know, achieve most of this for Kubeflow 1.8. I wouldn't want this to sort of go to Kubeflow 1.9. You know, it would mean a pretty long development cycle. So yeah, 2-3 weeks.
All right, somebody give me a date here. April, blah, blah, 2022. I'm just trying to hold our feet to the fire so we have something to say that we thought. So if we can get a date on there, please review that document. Some very good stuff in there. I think it's important for anything that's got a UI interface. All right, let's keep going. There was a Slack or a comment that, you know, we need an alternative to Slack. Slack messages apparently are disappearing in free Slack. I guess if we move over to the CNCF, we get a different Slack version and Slack messages are kept longer. But we have this open issue here about what do we do about Slack in the meantime, because people are losing, I guess, 90-day-old Slack messages. Is that right?
I think this discussion's come up many times before. There's like the only serious alternative is Discord, and even the CNCF Slack would more than. I've seen a lot of projects which have joined the CNCF adopt the CNCF Slack. I don't know if they try and force it upon you or not, but it means that you lose a lot of autonomy as a project. And for a project as complicated as Kubeflow, just like the Kubernetes Slack is still independent of the CNCF Slack. I think it might still make sense to be independent of their Slack. We'll obviously have a channel on the CNCF Slack, but there could be some problems otherwise. But even Discord itself, like, you know, you can't trust that they'll be around forever. Not trying to suggest that they're going to disappear, anyone listening, but I'm just saying, you know, Slack, it might just be best to assume that messages on Slack or whatever we use are ephemeral, and then just only use GitHub for things that are meant to be permanent. But Discord, the biggest issue with the Slack right now is that there's a lot of admins, and it's very confusing who owns it. But more than that, there's no ability to set any permissions on the free Slack, and Slack is always in a bit of a war with free Slacks because they don't like people using it for what we're doing. And we've contacted many times; they're not interested in sponsoring or anything like that. So,
yeah, I agree with you, Matthew. I don't think Slack should be used as like the source of truth, right? So, you know, we should probably just go through and pull out some of the questions and create some knowledge-based documents for the community based on what's there, knowing that it will disappear. That's a very intensive labor of love to do that. But, you know, we just shouldn't use Slack as that source of truth.
If we treat it as just a messaging thing effectively, which is what most, like, you know, a temporary sort of like direct messaging thing for calling and other things, it is fine for that purpose. Like moving to something like Discord, also people have this psychological thing where they want to keep their work separate from other stuff, and Discord is still very much not a work thing.
All right, let's keep going. I don't know that we've got a resolution here, but we do have an open issue. Please comment on the issue. If there's no good answer, there's no good answer, but let's see what we can do. User feedback sessions, the working groups in particular had asked for these sessions. I don't know that anybody's organized these. I don't know whether this goes into the community outreach or one of the other groups that have been recently organized, or whether this is on the product management team or on the working groups themselves. But I don't think that we have a Git issue. I think this is a good idea. I think there's a lot of complicated topics that need to be discussed. And I don't think that we have a Git issue open to track any of this. So what do we do here? Do we have anyone who feels like they want to help organize even a Git issue and a proposal about how we might do user feedback sessions?
Well, you know, like you said, I can't do everything. I'm willing to help with this because this is of interest. You know, we can have either like a meeting where people could join, but a lot of users, you know, when you start asking them specific questions about Kubeflow, don't really want to, you know, they like to give the good, but they might not want to give the bad and the ugly of their experience recorded publicly. So maybe if we had a couple people who are willing to reach out to different users on behalf of, you know, the project, and just talk to folks. I mean, I'm happy to do it because I'm scheduling interviews with some of our users and stuff, but I don't know.
All right, Amber, you and I will take this on for now, but
Okay.
you know, let's see if there's and from this, there needs to be a Git issue, at least for tracking it, and some form of proposal. So why don't we take that
I'll
on?
do the Git issue and proposal if you want. I can do that this week.
All right, we'll see how this goes, and maybe this goes concurrent with some of our user meetings or something. Let's keep going. Update on Ray. Anybody have an update on what happened, what's happening with the Ray integration, and any help needed, help wanted? Do we lose Julius?
I know there's a PR open that they're waiting to hear back on.
I can tell you something about it. Actually, Kevin spent some of time with he's called spent some time. I mentored him. The PR even added the workflows for time testing, but we are waiting for people to approve the workflows. This, for example, goes to Dominic or Simona.
Yeah, it was a little muffled for me to hear, but maybe other people picked up what that was. Dominic,
Really?
go ahead.
Yeah, Dominic and Simona should take a look at the PR.
Okay, so the help wanted, Dominic, Kimonis, and what is it that you want him to comment?
They need to approve the workflows for the integration testing with the kind clusters.
Okay.
And in general, look at the PR, whether they are satisfied.
All right, so that's one. What about users? Have we heard anything back from users?
This is just the first step. We are just integrating it. There's the Ray operator. No graphical user interface. It's only possible to create Ray clusters. That's all. I mean, there was this Slack channel regarding Ray. There's this GitHub issue regarding Ray.
Okay. Look, we're over time. I'm willing to keep going because there's still some updates, and I think Amber did some work, so I'd like to get some update from the security team. If people need to drop off, understand, I can keep the meeting open a little bit longer. On this Ray portion, what you've given us some idea of what next steps are. Help wanted is Dominic and Kimonis requested to approve the workflows for the integration testing on the kind clusters. Is that what I understand on kind clusters? Is that correct?
Yeah, because
Okay.
this is expect for each component, also for KStuff, for example.
And is there anywhere that we can have users that might come in and comment on this or provide interest? Do you want them to provide that on the issue that's open? Like maybe they be potential alpha trial users or something?
Yes, I need to find the original issue again, but I think there was one. Maybe you know it, and maybe I could link the PR there.
Yeah. So we'll go back and see if we can find some alpha users. I know that there was a lot of interest in some of the posts that we had done. And so when we're ready for the alpha users to come in, I'd like to be able to give them a specific thing to do, like look at this documentation, or first we probably need to tell them what it does and what the value of it is, and that it's still a phase 1 or early. And then, you know, review the docs and give us comments or something, right? So I think we need to set the context of where it is. Okay, great work. Look, this is a tremendous victory, I think, for the community. We laid out several very advanced projects. This was one of them that has made progress. We knew it was going to take probably several phases, and Julius, great work. I hope that, you know, you're getting exposure and benefits from this besides the community as well. I think the ML flow stuff is kind of, as we know, kind of still in process. I don't think it's made as much progress as the security team. So in the interest of not, you know, unless you want to give something quick on that, Julius, like, is there something what would
There
be?
was this company called, I don't know, remember the name exactly, but they did some presentations that what they wanted to include was not beautiful, I would say, at least. This concurrent stuff and so on. But I know some companies who, and they stopped developing regarding it. I had some long discussions, but I didn't invest in more time. But I know some companies which are actively developing the most interesting basic part, or integrating the most basic part of ML Flow into Kubeflow. But I need to persuade them to upstream it.
Okay. Is there something that you need help with, or is there some end user feedback that would help you?
I think it just needs time. There's other stuff, and maybe in the second half of the year we'll have time to look at the ML Flow stuff.
Is there any tracking issue or anything besides? I think this tracking issue had to deal with the concurrent Infinistore project, which is now on hold. Is there a tracking issue for these items that you have open for the ML Flow integration?
I don't think that there's a, I don't know. It's too long ago.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Needed. All right, let's keep going. Security team, Amber, meeting tomorrow, is that right?
That is correct.
So probably need to update this. This is and is the date, is the time, did the time get funky or did the time change?
Let me look on the calendar 1 second and I will verify. It is tomorrow at it looks like 8 8 Pacific, 10 Central.
Okay. And
we should have the first draft of a very simple process and procedures. We'll still keep working on the longer one, but in the interim, we'll have, you know, a very simple one. I totally spaced it on filing the PR. I'm not sure how that dropped off my to-do list, but I will put the PR in today to get the directory under Kubeflow, Kubeflow created, and then we'll set up tags for all the working groups and stuff like that. And then we'll iron out, we'll go through the very, like I said, simple process tomorrow and get that hopefully finalized. And then we can work on the more complex processes with more detail for 1.8 and beyond.
Makes sense. Okay. I think the policies document is a good one. I think all these deliveries have been very good. We comment on those in the blog post. This has been a big win. I think I'm surprised we haven't heard more back from other users at this point, but I would say that we see end users participating in the security team, which is a good sign that they see it as valuable. So this is probably a good lesson learned about how to grow a team inside of Kubeflow and you know, keep momentum going and making good deliveries. So I guess we'll wait for an update on that one. Matthew, I apologize, I cut you off. You did bring up this very relevant topic about how do we version the docs on kubeflow.org. I know this is relatively complex and probably you need to have control or be able to show what you're talking about to make it relevant. Is this something that we should put at the top of the agenda for our next meeting?
Probably not until the one after we release 1.7. It's something we could discuss before then, but since we're like, it just depends on, I think this is probably something the CNCF will want because it's, you know, it's definitely a part of due diligence. Whether or not it has to be done before we adopt, probably not, but it's just one of those things that definitely, obviously we need a well-structured docs. It's very difficult to use an app that doesn't have well-structured docs. But yeah, a lot of these problems become less complex as we push more and more docs to version themselves independently. Like once we've pushed the components to version their docs independently, then the overall website docs just become about concepts and how they all link together rather than about, you know, so like, for example, once there's a sub website or something that is versioned on a separate drop-down version for pipelines, let's say, you know, and that actually is reflective of the versions of pipelines, and one for notebooks and one for Cadet and one for Queso, which Queso already has one. A lot of the problems go away and it just becomes about what actually should live on the overall website. And so these discussions probably are not helpful until after then.
Okay, so here's perhaps a request, and you know, if you don't want to, fine, but perhaps in April we put this on the agenda and maybe you can spend 5-7 minutes walking us through, showing us perhaps 1 or 2 examples of what you think needs to be changed. Would that be okay?
Possibly. I think what I'm saying is more that like there's 2 kind of pre-steps which are going to make this a lot easier, which is that the distributions should be moved off, which we're doing, and the components, there should be a discussion around versioning those independently of the Kubeflow version, and we can just keep the current structure for the short period of time. Yeah. No, that's
I get it. So there's interrelated, and so I think that this is a good discussion. It is a complex discussion. It takes a lot of work and it's some refactoring, but I think we have to start to look at it.
So yeah, there isn't actually a tracking item there for the versioning of the components. So I think the main thing we should propose is that, well, I think there's 2 things we could do. The first thing we could do is just okay. The first one is that we could stop versioning the website, you know, effectively just have only master or main, and then have a dev branch maybe as well. But other than that, and then put a flag on those things which are specific to specific versions, whether older or newer. But I think even then, that's still not worth doing yet. I think the first thing we should do is discuss how we version the component docs, which is separate to versioning the Kubeflow docs. And my proposal for that would be that we version them with their upstream versions. The only complexity becomes the apps which are not obviously distinct from Kubeflow, like the like Notebook, Central Dashboard, things that are versioned with the version of Kubeflow right now, they're not really versioned independently. Having separate website for them, or a separate subdomain on the website, for example, or even subsection, the slash, you know, might with its own versioning. So like, you know, you can imagine there's already a website that's like this for Kubeflow pipelines, you know, so which is like versioned by their pipeline versions. But it's just a matter of maturity on each of the components as well. So I think maybe the first step would be to there's a lot of discussion, but I think we have to control the steps. That's just my thought process here. We need to be very careful about the steps we take.
I'm gonna have you kind of think about this a little bit and perhaps come back and give us a kind of a
proposal, yeah.
Something to perhaps, I don't want to put extra work on you. You've thought about this, but if there's some way that we can move this to a place that addresses some of the comments that you've been making, which I think are valid, I think that would be good. There are several other items here, Matthew, that you have. Publish an adopters list of Kubeflow users.
I think that's a good idea, but we would have to have some kind of permission for us to use them. We just can't go and put them on the list. Just like a company can't say, oh, we have this customer, we're going to use your logo. You know, we've got to figure out how to get the waiver to let them promote.
So people can put their own companies
True.
on the list. That's obviously my thought process. We just create a location, populate it with a few initial users who we reach out to directly, and then say, hey, if you're using it, please just put your name here if you've got approval to do it from your company. And then we just confirm that their GitHub shows that they're from that company, for example, you know.
Yeah, if they want to, yeah, I agree. Having them self-select and put on there, no issue. But if we were going to just put them on there, we'd need to get permission. So
yeah, because that's what, like, the Airflow, for example, has this, and it does get a bit overwhelming once you've got thousands of users. But like, for example, the Airflow GitHub repo has like a adopters file that you can just PR yourself into. You know, we could do something similar and then maybe reflect that on the website somehow.
yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay, and update docs to only include Kubeflow.
Oh yeah, this is a comment about the fact that so this is related to so I've been kind of focusing on the distribution docs for a while, but the component docs also need their own series of work. But this is that for some reason, literally the component docs for trading operator are completely out of date. Like, they don't even reflect the current state of the project. I have no idea what's going on there. I don't know if they have a separate docs website that they're using, or if, you know, what's happening there, but yeah.
All right, we need to take a look at this.
And my last one is, yeah, these are just ideas that I'm wanting the community to discuss. But yeah.
Okay. And then this Airflow operator,
This is just a common request that I've seen, which is that both to be able to trigger Kubeflow pipelines from Airflow. This is that way around.
Trigger Kubeflow pipeline.
This is obviously for the pipelines team, but it's just something that I think I've seen a lot of requests about.
Okay.
It may already exist. I think some companies might have already made some. But
and then the Helm operator, or the Helm installation pattern, how's that coming?
yeah, so we're working on that. It's slightly more complicated than just Helm, but it's coming along. Initially, we'll probably be releasing it under the name Argo Flow, that distribution, because that distribution, it's kind of the most similar derived from that, but it's going to support 1.6. So the initial 1.6 beta will probably be ready sometime in April. Updating it to 1.7 won't be that complex, but we don't want to do that until we've got a final release of 1.7 anyway. And effectively, there probably will be, but it probably won't be called Argo Flow forever. It's just initially its main thing it does is it still needs to be deployed with Argo CD. And you'll see why once you look at it. But effectively, the idea will be that any GitOps tool will be able to be used to deploy it, Flux CD, Argo CD, whatever. But it's effectively giving you what you would get from Helm, using a lot of Helm, yes, but there's some pieces of Kubeflow that don't make sense with Helm, and so those pieces, it gives you everything you would want from a Helm chart, which is that it gives you a bunch of common values that control everything, but the end result is about 30 Helm charts that are generated dynamically based off your values to work all together. So for example, you can easily disable pipelines or enable Katib or Kserve and everything, like for example, the sidebar links disappear automatically when you disable Katib if you disable it, and things like that.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, so hopefully we'll have more to share soon.
Great. Well, this is another big one. I mean, the Helm community is very large, right? On Kubeflow, on Kubernetes, it's like 25,000 people belong to the Helm channel. So I think,
yeah, for most operators of Kubernetes, I'd go so far as to say almost all, it is the default method of installation of apps.
And if you're using Argo CD, how's the license for that?
So we're not distributing Argo CD in this context, and it's also an Apache 2 licensed product. But the thing is more like the generator for this tool. So the way this tool works is that you, just like a Helm chart, you have a values file, but the difference is that there's 2 layers of values. The first one is the one that generates. So effectively, you use this tool to generate 20 Helm charts for you. That's kind of how this works. And then those are and it's very easy to keep up to date. It makes more sense when you look at it. But the point is that rather than trying to have one mega Helm chart for all of Kubeflow, which just does not work in our testing, you generate specialized ones just for you based off whether you've chosen which pieces of Kubeflow. And I think, yeah, this is just, and for example, and to make that easier to deploy, we recommend people use Argo CD, and we automatically generate the Argo CD configs to do that. But because trying to deploy 20 Helm charts manually is not a fun time.
Okay, well, progress and good update. Look forward to hearing more about that. Seems like there's a lot of stuff coming in April. I think we're going to have to organize what we're going to do in April, because guess what? We also are going to need a Kubeflow 1.8 release team formed in that time frame as well. So, and continue on probably Kubeflow 1.7.1. So there's going to be a lot going on with KubeCon in April. And I think that we just need to be cognizant that we're going to probably have to make some priority calls of what gets done along with the CNCF transition and everything else that but fantastic work by a lot of people. You can see the community is really active. A lot of contributions. I'm gonna kind of turn down the meeting here unless there's something really hot or some topic that needs to be brought up to the priority for next meeting. So I'm gonna ask now, is there anything else before we close that anybody wants to go over? Are there any priority items that people want to talk about for the next meeting?
No, I think
Yeah,
we're good.
maybe what you. Yeah, you can go first.
No, that's fine. You go.
Okay. What you already have opened there, this contributor upgrade to reviewer and or approver and or maintainer, this stuff. I'm not sure whether this is already finished or whether it's still in discussion.
Thank you for bringing this up. This is something that's near and dear to my heart, is understanding whether people that are contributing and requesting upgrades are getting them, are being recognized, are able to take a more ownership and responsible position in the community. If people are not, please raise your hand and let us know. I also want to make sure that, you know, as much as possible, we clean this up and we all understand what the names are and what the responsibilities are.
Absolutely. And I think, Josh, this is probably the one thing that would block us from currently being adopted by the CNCF, because without this, the due diligence would certainly fail under the current regime, I think. Because it's like one of the most important measures that the CNCF and everyone views right now, because I'm sure you've seen all the open source stuff online, is the ability of like how you control who has access to change the code, and how you promote new people when old people leave, and things like that are the most critical things for any open source project, for security and everything reasons, just have all reasons.
Yeah, after the 1.7 release, we should really focus on that with Kimonas and the Google guys and so on.
Like, yeah, I'm certain that this will have to be sorted before we can be adopted. And it's just about making sure that we have a policy, which we already have, that we make sure that policy is fit for purpose, and that it's clear who is responsible to enforce that policy, and who is and who, when they're not enforcing the policy and doing it, like what we do, you know what I mean? And so we have a process to like install temporary caretakers for subsections of the project that are capable of promoting new contributors, for example, and things like that. Like something like maybe that's what the one part of the policy that we might need to add.
Okay. I think those are all good comments.
Oh,
And-
and in that vein, actually, there is an incredible number of contributors who have pretty elevated access just because everyone can approve commits. Anyone who's anyone is a member. Like there's this question about whether we should de-elevate the privileges of the members and create effectively a new level in between reviewer and member that, so either we need to remove almost all the members, you know what I mean? So, which might be a good idea anyway, because the GitHub org and everything. And then only have people there who we trust to actually approve an LGTM PRs. So people who aren't involved in the project anymore or are not involved in specific sections of the project can't do things. Yeah.
But it's not like that. You really need to be approver to approve stuff and get stuff merged. Member only allows you to run the CI/CD. That's all it does.
Well, it also allows you to LGTM anything.
Yes, but there still must be an approver.
This is true, but that means that a single approver and anyone on the members list can change the code.
Yes, but at least 2 people.
Point is that there's just too many members. Like there's like 1,000 of them or something.
Yeah, we could. So you want to cut down on members who are not active anymore, maybe.
Or there's 2 options. We either leave the current members so that people don't feel like they're being shafted and create a secondary level, which is the one that gives you LGTM, or we just wholesale clear them out and then go through the process of having everyone reapply to join back as a member again.
Yeah, something to discuss, but maybe, yeah, I have to leave now.
Or, approvers have to take more responsibility.
It's just that the problem is once something gets approved, it can be accidentally LGTM'd by anyone who's a member. And I've seen it happen so many times where things have been approved by someone. Anyway, yeah, it's yeah. Someone just randomly comes out of nowhere and their LGTM works, and I'm like, oh god, this is bad. Some code that was not ready to be merged has been merged. Anyway, thanks, Josh.
Okay, appreciate everybody's time, making great progress. Let's keep the momentum and looking good. Thanks to the 1.7 team in particular for bringing things to fruition. All right, I think that's it. Talk to you later.